Have you been experiencing resistance? Have you been feeling like things are coming to closure, like a chapter of a book is closing and it just feels unfinished? Didn't end the way you wanted. It didn't have the outcome you were looking for, and yet it's still closing. And you might be feeling some resistance in the new directions you're being pulled. So if so, tune in to this broadcast. Jennifer Spor is here with us. She is the host of the Awakened Heart podcast, and she's an amazing channel, Akashic Records master consultant, advisor. She's just incredible. She has great wisdom for us today about releasing resistance. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our connection with each other, our stories, our mystical adventures, and we learn about life through the reflection of each other. And this wonderful planet that we're on at the time of the Great Awakening, who knew that it was going to be this intense? Probably not us, because we said yes. And here we are, and we get to experience just how intense this is. And so on Soul Nectar Show, we love to have these conversations and more. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love to have these conversations week after week and bring my friends on to have deep conversations that illuminate me as well as all of you. And so today is going to be no different. We're going to be talking about releasing resistance. I know you've got some. I do. We all do. We want to release it. We wish we could just say, I release my resistance and it would just go. It would be so easy if it worked that way. And yet it doesn't seem to exactly work that way. There seems to be more to it. And so what is the whole conversation about resistance and how we can release it? Let's get some insights today. So today we have Jennifer Spor on with us. Welcome, Jennifer.
Oh, thanks for the warm welcome, Carrie. I'm so excited to be here with you and your audience to have this chat today.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. Jennifer and I had just the most amazing conversation the first time around when we talked, and it was incredible. We should have pressed record. It was amazing. And so this time we are pressing record and we're here. You're going to catch all of it. So Jennifer is the CEO and founder of her namesake company and the host of Path of the Awakened Heart podcast. She is a spiritual advisor, a channel, Akashic Records trauma-informed master consultant, and a teacher for high-achieving conscious women leaders who are here to live unapologetically, expressed in their truth, and fulfill their highest destiny in this life, totally led by their souls. And so I'm really, really excited to have you on the show today. And as we were checking in before the show, the conversation that wanted to happen was around resistance and how we can release resistance. You know, we are having this conversation on the heels of that massive eclipse in early April. And today actually is the new moon. We're recording this on the new moon. So it's been 1 month since that massive solar eclipse. I was actually standing outside underneath it with the full-on eclipse and the darkness of night coming in the middle of day and the streetlights going on. And it was the eeriest, strangest feeling. And I felt the power of that moment. And that kicked off for me, my journey down to Wirikuta, down to my 5-year initiatory path conclusion for the first 5 years anyway, with Wisharika people down in Mexico, going out in Wirikuta, going in the desert, going up to the top of the mountain Quemado. I can't really tell you details about what we do because that's all private, but like massive initiation for my husband and I. And like all ensconced in this last month since that solar eclipse. And it feels like a lot. And I keep getting this message, you're still integrating it. You're still integrating it. And I want to get up and run. Like I want to get up and go and do it. And there's lightning moving through my body and I got to stay still. And so I don't know if anybody else is feeling like this dramatic, strange, like I feel so filled with energy, but I'm exhausted. I can't move. I need to move. I want to do something. I don't know what to do. It's how do we incorporate all this? And there could be some resistance to incorporating some of it, right? I mean, because we are here at this time when, at least for myself, I'm ready to embody. I'm ready to fully surrender and embody my spirit and let it all in, right? And like live completely from my soul and every atom, every cell, and every space in between. And I made an invocation on the top of the mountain to the effect of that. And I even put little tricky words in there, like said, like, anytime I try to like avoid this, just you have my permission to correct it. Like you have my explicit permission to fix all that resistance. And still I feel like, wow. So tell us about like, what's your perception about resistance? Like, why does it arise? We know what we want, but how come we get this resistance?
There's something that you just said that I would love to elaborate on. Before I do that, I want to say that when the eclipse happened, we all changed timelines. We literally changed timelines. And I was actually flying home from Mexico the day of the eclipse, during the eclipse. And I was on the plane and I wasn't in the full path of, the visibility of it. It was more like 35%, but I looked out the window and could definitely see that it was darker outside. And yes, this whole last month has been a ride. I know for me, there were lots of sudden plot twists, like unexpected, sudden energetic shifts and twists and turns and major stuff, not small stuff. So no one is alone. We are all in this thing together. I'd love to kick off our conversation about resistance with something that you said about, you were setting these intentions, right? And you even kind of like crossed the T's and dotted the I's by saying, and if I then correct me. And I want to share with everyone that at the time, in that moment of time, that does work, right? Setting that intention. What happens is that we still have free will in any given moment beyond that moment, right? So what happens is that if we don't align, so if something that we experience doesn't continue to align with that intention that we've set, then we end up canceling that out. This is something that I teach with clients a lot in creating their reality and manifestation, right? It's the importance of embodying those intentions because, this conversation about resistance isn't super sexy and glamorous. I know, but it is the conversation that needs to be had and it needs to be heard, right? Because, manifesting in of itself, that word has even become like a buzz term, a buzzword, in the personal development industry and spiritual communities. And ask, believe, and receive. Yes, that sounds extremely inspiring, right? And it can be, but yes, there is more to it than that. Becoming the master, right? Seeking to master the creation of your reality and your experience here involves harmonization and balance of all of your bodies. So spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and energetically. And what we fall into all too easily, right, as our human selves and our human experience is sometimes setting intentions and intending to manifest, but we end up trying to do a lot of that isolated in our mental space. So really, as we're setting those intentions, right, bringing all aspects of our being into harmonization when we're doing it is really important. And it is true that with clear intention and clear energy, things can change. You can change timelines. You can change your reality in an instant. It's really about that harmonization and that balance. And so where does resistance come into play, right? Because resistance can show up in sneaky ways. Because the other thing that we tend to do a lot in our human experience, right, is we are very conditioned to compartmentalize everything, to put a label on everything, right? And to focus on things as if they are separate entities, which all that does is feed that separation consciousness, right? So it's understanding that whatever we are intending it with our whole being. So, like how you show up in business is how you show up in life and vice versa. And same with, relationships, money, career. Those are some of the major ones, right? Like health, everything is interconnected. So it's really, you're on this journey, right? To lift the veil, to see more clearly how all of those threads come together and to harmonize them. And when you learn how to do that more and more, your entire life, not just what you intend to create, or to manifest, starts to feel more like it's in flow and like it's easier for you to choose peace and to feel a lot more neutral about outcomes and circumstances.
Yeah. And it takes mastery though. Like you have to actually practice mastery to have mastery. I mean, releasing attachments, like you were just saying, like putting yourself in the flow by not being attached to the outcome, that takes practicing releasing your attachments, becoming aware of what they are and then releasing them. So that awareness muscle, I'm aware that I'm attached to the outcome looking exactly like this. Oh, it
Yeah.
didn't. I'm aware that now I've judged it and put it into a container as bad or wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I forgot that the reason it's doing that is because of this other choice I made over here that's not congruent with the current in context. And so, of course, it changes everything in order to be congruent with what I'm manifesting. With the whatever has the greatest power and energy is what's manifesting, right? Like, for example, if you made big prayers on the solar eclipse, well, that's a really powerful day to make those prayers. And if you really embodied it, right? Like you're talking about, like felt it in your body, visualized it, experienced, maybe even danced to it or wrote it down, put it in a fire ceremony, use some sacred ceremony with it, then that is set in motion now. And so any other smaller claims you might have made along the way, they don't have as much energy as that. That has more energy. It's going to recalibrate things, right? Like towards your highest claim you're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything is happening in this now moment, right? Like we have the power in any moment to change our intentions or realign them or amplify them, if you will. We are, I mean, there really aren't even words just to say that as much as we've evolved as a human race, like humanity, and with everything that's even happening right now with this like higher frequency of consciousness that we're stepping into as a collective, we've still barely even scratched the surface of our potential as creators.
Yeah. And this is current time on the planet is really about becoming sovereign, right? So that we can then become interdependent. So we're moving out of dependency into sovereignty so that then we can practice interdependence. And so we're co-creating our dreams together. But first it starts with us knowing, like in our soul's intelligence, like what dream, what vision is our soul giving us to manifest? And then some of those dreams are not going to be simpatico with other people in either our family system or other people in our life that we would like to travel with. But if it's not compatible, it's going to just kind of go,
Right. Yeah. And we struggle with that, right? Because we've lived in a society where we're taught, right? It's like if someone is family or if someone has this label or we've attached this meaning, right, to this person, then we can't not travel with them or not share the most intimate details of our life with them. And in many cases, there are lots of people that are blessed that have those close relationships with their family members. There are also other people that don't. And really the point of this, right, is to say that the point of your entire journey here is your personal learning and evolution and how to fortify your foundation and a crystal clear sense of self. Like you said, interdependent, right? It's just like understanding who you are separate from all of that.
but that can create resistance. It can create
Yes,
resistance because like that happened to me. Like some shifts happened and I had to make a choice in my family system. And when I made that choice, when I checked in, it was in my highest good and my highest destiny path. I always check things against, is it my highest destiny path? Because I'm always wanting to stay aligned with my highest destiny path. That's just like my checkpoint. And it was like, is this aligned with my highest destiny path? Yes. Is it aligned with the highest good for this person? No. I really love this person. Dang. Okay. So I had to make this choice. Am I going to do what's in my highest destiny, knowing that my highest destiny is not only for me, but for all the people I serve? I've got to make that call, and I've got to choose, to serve the greatest number of people, to have the greatest influence, the greatest impact I could possibly have, which goes against everything I've been taught about my role. And so that was really challenging. That happened all within this eclipse period. So it feels like a shoring up for me anyway. It's been a real shoring up of all of those places where I resisted doing what my soul said. I said, no, let me see if I can make this work. No, let me give it more time. No, let me talk to this person a little bit more. Let me see if this will work. It's kind of like almost like trying to manipulate the outcome I wanted and not just accepting the way things are, and that has been really challenging too, this whole process.
I love that you bring that up too, because there, as a sensitive being, especially, there is a fine line sometimes between, oh, am I being of service, right? To allow this person more space or to take a little bit more time? Or is it really coming from a space of fear, right? So I think you were saying this earlier in our conversation, right? You didn't actually say stepping into an observer role, but you said something like that. The importance of, like, in releasing resistance, you have to start identifying some of these pieces and then actually stepping into an observer role to walk yourself through from a space of curiosity, right? To really get clear on understanding on where everything comes from and then making a decision from that space. And it's a lot easier to do that even with our closest, most intimate relationships when we are very fortified in what truth feels like in our body. And we're very clear and fortified in our sense of self, because then we know, yep, that doesn't align with my values. That doesn't align, with who I am.
Yeah. And I was definitely experiencing that. So I questioned the decision. I questioned it. And then I got up on the mountain with all the medicine and I was like, okay, fine. The same answer. I didn't get any different answers. I got all the same answers. So for me, it just took me a little bit longer to accept that decision from my soul and to trust that there's wisdom in that. Like there was great wisdom in it, and that it will actually prove to be more beneficial in the long run, having made that choice. And this is part of what I learned when writing Healing the Mother Wound, is that when we listen to the hollow bone and we make the choice, like you said, with non-attachment, and we go ahead and do the thing that we're afraid to do because it's going to disrupt all of the conditioning that we live in, and we go ahead and do it anyway, what happens is usually more liberation, more freedom, and more empowerment for everyone. But it just looks messy for a while, right? And so we can't avoid the mess, though. And that's the resistance, is trying to avoid the mess or trying to do it in such a way that there won't be any mess. But good luck.
That's another program, right?
Right.
Because we want to avoid the mess, right? That's what I'm talking about in releasing resistance, going deeper, right? That's another way that resistance shows up for us.
Yeah, because it's trying to keep the peace without having the conflict, keep the peace without holding the boundary,
Yes.
And these are all self-protection mechanisms to keep the relationship and keep the belonging. And it's afraid of having that honest conversation or standing in the truth or standing in the boundary or standing in your personal truth and letting the other person figure it out. That's so hard because it does disrupt relationships for a while.
And truth coming from a place of love, right, is the highest form of love. And sometimes that looks messy. And sometimes, relationships don't always work out the way that we want them to, the way that we desire them to. And it's in our willingness to accept and let go, knowing that we've shown up in the highest way. That's true love, love without condition.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I'm wondering, as just an adjunct to this letting go, like you just talked about, letting go of the way we wanted it to be, for example, that has shown up big time especially in my healer group. This, since the eclipse, has been this period of time where literally everybody in my group with their own details, and myself included, have felt like this closure, this epic closure of history up until now, kind of this is coming to an end. And this feeling of incompleteness inside and like some disappointment that it didn't work out the way we wanted, right? Like it didn't resolve itself. It didn't resolve itself to the place we wanted it to be. And yet it's coming to a close and yet that's complete. And that part has been that radical acceptance to feel that disappointment, to feel that really strange limbo feeling, like it's done, but it doesn't feel like it should be done, but it is complete. And it's like unfinished. We didn't get everywhere we needed to go. We didn't check all the boxes.
Yeah.
And it's still ending. Did you have some similar experience with this eclipse?
Oh, hell yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I want to say first, just in response to what you were just saying, it is really important to give ourselves permission to grieve that, to grieve what's ending, even if it doesn't serve our highest good anymore. This is part of the human experience, right? And that's another program, especially people who consider themselves overachievers, high achievers, which I know I am. I've always been like a very motivated, driven learner, my whole life, basically. And it's just sometimes I can still fall into that place of like checking the box off the list. Oh, okay. I got to the root of that, now moving on to the next stage of my evolution. And I've experienced that many times where time and time again, it's like a boomerang or like a rubber band, something like I keep bringing myself back to Jennifer. It's okay to chill for a day, like create the space just to sit there without listening to music, without doing anything, right? Even meditating without just doing anything. Like just allowing yourself to be and to fully feel all of those feelings. Cause what happens too is that when we don't give ourselves permission to feel the full spectrum of all the emotions, whether they make sense to us or not, they are still inside of us in our body, in our physical body, even though we think that we've moved on, and they become stored energy, right? So I'm sure everyone's experienced this where, you've done some inner work on something, healed some trauma or healed something that you've experienced. And then it seems to keep coming back. And you're like, what the hell? When does it end or whatever? First, our journey of learning really never ends. That being said, right, when that happens, it's just because there's some energy being stored in your body that wasn't fully processed and released. And it's, just so important for us to give ourselves the space. Such an important part of our journey. And now I don't even remember what you really asked me. So,
Oh, well, that was beautiful. And I would say thank you for giving me permission because I have been grieving. I've had a lot of grief surface in my heart and it's just been catching me by surprise coming up,
yeah.
Just several days in the last few weeks. And I've just been with it. Just let it, I was in Costco and it came up because I saw someone that reminded me of my situation and I just burst into tears and I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to let myself cry. This is what catalyzed it for me. I'm grateful. I'm just going to let myself grieve and put an ending to that part of my life,
Yeah. I feel like this is important to bring into everyone's awareness as well, just to say that we're literally wired to create. We're wired as alchemists. We are this soul, this nebula, this beautiful like star energy, like having this experience here on earth in this human body, this glorious experience. The earth is so abundant and there's just so much around us, right? That being said, so many of us up to this point have had ancestral programming or societal programming that literally has taught us the opposite of who we really are. So it is so important to allow yourself to bring forward anything that wants to come forward, whether it's an emotion that you want to feel, a change that you want to make in your business or career, or whatever it is, let that come forward because that's what you're here to do. Like a lot of people talk about purpose, and I've done this in the past as well, talked about purpose in the context of this thing that you find. And then it's like, hallelujah, like my life has meaning now. But actually, your purpose is being here. Your purpose is being your most authentic self. And yes, doing work in the world that lights you up is an important component of that, but it's not the component of that. It's bringing forward the deepest, most authentic version of who you are through every aspect of your being.
Yeah, because I mean, definitely being a mother has been a big purpose of mine. And it's changing now, because my kids are older, they're in their 20s. And so, like, that's all shifting too. And a big part of my lesson over the last month has been to let go, to let go of the old form and the old ideas and even the way the relationships express themselves with me, with the different kids, and just be like, okay, I'm open now, like a blank slate for what's needed, right? Like what's needed now, what's the relationship now. And it might just be like none right now, I mean, that might be it. And can I be okay with that? Like what part of me isn't okay with that? It's another program. And then I get to find out like what part of me got some self-worth out of that program, by playing that role, and can I pull that back inside now so that I'm no longer externalizing my worth, but I'm coming inside to myself and loving who this being is and celebrating this being. Cause there was like, I found this sneaky little loophole where I was like gauging or postponing my assessment of my worth based on how one of my children was doing. And since that person doesn't really want to live conventionally, it was not matching my picture like ever. It hasn't. But I was like, oh my gosh, like this, how can I be okay with the job I did when he's being like this? And it was like, oh, wow. Okay. Well, first of all, challenge all your ideas about what's good and what's bad. Right. So I've gone through that whole process of like, it's perfect for him. Like whatever he's doing right now is absolutely perfect because it's part of his divine plan. It can't be any other way because he's divine being of light. So like, that's exactly what he needs. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. I am totally tying up my worth in his like exterior performance or whatever I think it is. That's messed up. So I was like, wait a second, how can I pull it all back in and see like, how can I just assess myself? Like, how do I feel I have done as a mother? Like, where were some areas I wish I would have done something differently? Like, this has been part of my conclusion process, right? For this part of my life. And just assessing, like, how do I feel like I did? And can I have an honest assessment with myself? Like, not glad handing myself, also not throwing myself under the bus, but just like a realistic, balanced perspective. And so I've gotten to this, like, pretty, I feel, accurate assessment of myself, and then just work to come to peace on that, to accept it radically as that is just what has been and what is, and that is now complete. So next chapter, can I let it be? I can't fix it. There's no going back. So it's like, all right, well, that's just what it was.
That's another form of resistance, right?
Right.
So it's just us noticing all those forms of resistance and how they can show up, because when we choose to allow ourselves to start to let go of control, to acknowledge that a lot of this has been illusory programming that has pulled us away from the true essence of who we really are. Just even coming to that conclusion to begin to accept that is absolutely life changing. And then creating the reality that you really want in your heart of hearts to create things just start to feel easier. That doesn't mean that there isn't chaos. That doesn't mean that there aren't challenging things, right? That happen, but what happens is that you're able to choose peace, and you're able to choose peace and to choose truth because you're grounded in the sense of, who you are. And I always visualize, it's like this, the oldest, strongest oak tree in the midst of a hurricane. It's like your branches might be flexible, but you don't move from your foundation, you're clear on what that is.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to know thyself, right? Like that's the major thing, is to know thyself and to come into that center place. Like so much time, so many moments of pulling the oracle cards this last month, especially, I've been guided, like go inside, like center, come in, consult the ancient ones, like you're doing great. yeah, this is hard. And you got this. And trust that I planted millions of seeds, which I did. Some of those are going to flourish, but they're going to flourish in their own time. And it's not up to me anymore. So like relinquishing that sort of idea of like somehow having control over the madness, because there is no control. Come on. You're just holding space. That's it. There's no control. You can't prevent something from happening that you don't want. Right. So you just have to be present for the people you care about, even as a healer or as a mentor, as a coach, any one of those roles where we hold space for others. All we can do is show up, do our best, be our best. And my dad used to say, you do the best you can with the tools you have at the time and you call it a day. And it was really clear for him. And it's become clear for me. It's like, okay. Cause I would go back and reassess and see, okay, I could have done this. I could have done that. I could have done this other thing. And like you said, when the universe is like, we're closing this chapter, there'll be no more of that. It's like, you just like, don't have any more say anymore. Like you're done. Wrap it up.
Right. And when we are feeling that, which the closing of a chapter can feel very chaotic and heavy for us. And when it does feel that way, it's often a result of our persistent resisting the ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we are more honed in on a day-to-day basis in our experience of what wants to come forward to be expressed from within us, who we are, then we still experience challenges, but they're more like little speed bumps in the road and not these huge blow ups,
Yeah, exactly. And we're lighter too, because we're not like hauling history along with us when the universe is trying to cut the cord on that, and we're like, no, I'm keeping it.
Yes.
And, it's really sad to see people do that. And I have also had my own versions of doing that. And I know like it just didn't turn out the way you wanted.
I have too. Absolutely. I mean, everything I say is from a space of wisdom, having learned the hard way lots of times, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate, about supporting other people and about having conversations like this so it can be a bit of a smoother ride.
So, in terms of like any advice you might have for someone that says, listen, I said I release it, I put it in the fire, I wrote it all up, I burned it, I got a healing, I did all the things. Why am I still holding on to it? Like, why does it still circle in my mind?
Because you were likely in your mental space when you did all of that.
Okay. So that's back to the embodiment. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yes, that's why. So really, when you are, receiving a healing, it's really important that beyond consciously setting the intention, right, that you're also feeling that experience in every cell of your body, anchoring yourself into the feeling that it has truly been released. And you will know this because you will feel lighter. Everything is a frequency. Everything is an energy. So when you've released something truly from your body, from all of your being, you will physically feel lighter. If you still feel the density, you'll know that there's more work to do, which by the way, that's okay too. Sometimes it isn't a one and done scenario. Sometimes you may need multiple sessions with someone, or you may need to sit multiple times with yourself, right? To spend time doing that exploration. Something that you said earlier, Carrie, that is really key that I didn't elaborate on at the time is that you were talking about us accepting, right? Accepting what is. And I can't remember how you worded it, but you talked about coming to terms with that. I want to say that in whatever way, for those listening, in whatever way you need to come to terms and to accept whatever it is, honor yourself in the way that you're feeling called to do that, because we are all designed differently. I am not an expert in human design. I do follow human design and study it very closely. And human design actually teaches a great example around this, around that each of us is designed uniquely, and our way of making decisions, right? Of coming to acceptance around things is unique to each of us as well. So this just goes back again to honoring at more depth your authentic self and who you are, and that any way that shows up for you is perfect because you're you, and there is no one else out of the 8 billion people here that is like you.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, sometimes that's like letting myself be mopey about it because I'm such
Yes.
a can do person. I'll just like, well, okay, that's ended. Okay, I'm gonna go over
Yes.
here and do this. And it's like, no, let me just go ahead and be mopey. I'm just going to sit around and be sorry for myself for a day, and just let myself
Yeah.
feel that and let myself cry and let myself really,
Yeah.
go talk to myself, right? Like, it's
That's
okay.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's okay to be that way. Like, we live in such a productive society that like wants to step over everything meaningful that,
Well, it's actually more productive.
yeah, it's over. It's
More
like too
productive.
much.
No, I mean, it's more productive to allow yourself the
Yeah.
space, right? Because when we don't give ourselves that space, then that energy is stored in our body and it simply manifests itself as something else down the road, such as disease, our health challenges, our everything. Everything is interconnected.
I love that you say like you got to feel it shift in your body to know that it's really shifted, which means you got to be present in your body, which means you got to get out of your mind about it. So that's a balance. Like, sometimes we've got to tell the story in order to open up the feelings. And then I've been coached heavily by my mentors to then stop telling the story. Now, it's really hard to put the brakes on that story once it's got its momentum going. But once you're feeling the feeling, like, go ahead and just stop talking and just feel. Because any talking after that moment is just like taking you out of the feeling and it's putting you back in your head. So it's like there's a balance
Yeah.
there.
Yes. And it's a day to day, like, working out at the gym, it's building a muscle, right? It takes discipline. It takes discipline. Now, there's a difference between force and discipline, right? Discipline is something that is aligned for you, but you're resisting. So when you show up anyways, you're not forcing yourself, right? What you're doing is creating a different reality for yourself through doing that. There is a time for the story. I will say though, that going beyond even the story, even if it's something you've been struggling with for a long time, if you can focus on reaching a space in your body that you are letting go of the resistance to change without getting into the story, just focusing on willingness to be open to change. I've had this happen so many times with clients in Akashic Records reading sessions because they're totally an open book and like ready to move on. Those shifts can happen in your Akashic Records energetically in less than an hour. So just keeping that in mind on your journey, right? It's like there is always a time for the story. Also understanding that even beyond that, it's really about your readiness.
Yeah,
Your
the
readiness.
readiness for change, the willingness to embrace it and
Yes.
all that it entails.
Yeah.
And that's what the dreams are made of. The dreams I'm calling forth are big dreams, right? And I'm sure everybody else here
Yes.
feels the same way. You're calling in big dreams for New Earth. You're calling in big dreams for your family for 7 generations forward. And that's going to mean some sacrifices. It's going to mean some
Yeah.
big changes because the way that we're living is not sustainable. And so it's going to require change. And can we let ourselves cry if we have to cry about that and then let go because it is a new reality we're entering?
Yes. And being compassionate with yourself and others, of course, because we're all on this journey, right? Of being disciplined, of having these, pure intentions of making a difference and learning. And we're all going through it.
Yeah. And it's something that we could just all hold each other in love, like to let ourselves move through it more gracefully. Yeah. We're being guided. I always remind myself, it's like, I'm just listening to the hollow bone. So I am being guided in this choice. And yeah, I get to face my own things, my own resistances, my own unmet desires and move through those. So Even if it looks like it's negatively impacting one person, it's also impacting me. I've got to move through it too. But on the other side of this, I really do believe like every time I followed the hollow bone guidance, it's always been right on. It's always led to a better outcome. Every time I drank the cup of Aya, it always led to a beautiful ceremony. I always got insights and revelations. I always got healing. So, overcoming the resistance, taking the medicine anyway, making the choice anyway, and trusting that it's better on the other side. That's a leap of faith we're all in right now, isn't it?
It's so funny. This analogy as you're talking comes up, it's just like, oh, you might not like Brussels sprouts, but they're healthy for you.
Go ahead and eat them. Gag them down.
Go ahead and
honey on them.
I couldn't stand those when I was a kid, but now I actually love them. Go figure.
Yeah, we can learn to love what's good for us. That is true.
Totally.
So I love your work. And, I just think you're fantastic. Jennifer's insights are just amazing. If you're looking for somebody who can just tap right into you and give you just eat gobs and gobs of truth, this is your gal. She's amazing. And I mean, I'm pretty good with other people too. But like, I was like, man, I need to talk to you. There's a few things, because we all need help. And you might be, I'm sure everybody listening, you guys have your own talents. You're all amazing. So many of you are leaders and masters. And, so I honor you. Deep bow, everyone. But also, Jennifer, you always need somebody on your corner that can point out the blind spots. And I got some blind spots. I know I do. And so does everybody. So beautiful work. And check out her podcast too, the Path of the Awakened Heart podcast. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Is there anything else you want to just transmit to the audience while we're here? And then we'll wrap up.
We covered a lot today. And my greatest intention, from my heart is that everyone listening can take from our conversation some actionable things that they can apply in their own life, right? To gain a better understanding of how resistance shows up for us, and to know that you are all beautiful, amazing, and perfect. And to give yourself permission to create space for that to come forward, to be expressed in your physical reality, to be your most authentic self.
I love it. So juicy. I love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for taking your time to come on the show and share your wisdom. And everybody check her out. Definitely look up her website. All the links are in the show notes below. So check that out. And we're going to give you guys kisses now. Are you ready to give kisses, Jennifer? I always give air kisses to everybody. Energetic Reiki kisses. Here they come. Love you guys so much. And have a great week, everyone. And I'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are. Soul Nectar Show. Yeah, yeah.